Good day, everybody. My name is Hume. This week, we're talking about building a communication brand. I have been a professor of communication for close to 2 decades. And in my early career, I was a broadcast journalist reading the news on television and on radio. And I was also a political speechwriter with the government of Jamaica. So when I say having a strong communication brand is essential to your success, believe me. Now, what is a communication brand and why does it matter? Let's get to it. In a nutshell, it's really just your own unique way of expressing yourself and of connecting with others. Many times it reflects your personality. It's just the way that you communicate is driven by your personality traits. Number 2, it sometimes reflects your values. If you're a person of dignity, of character, it tends to show up in the way that you communicate. Sometimes our communication also reflects our expertise. If we're deep thinkers, or we have deep knowledge or experience in a particular subject, it tends to come across in the way that we communicate. So everybody has their particular style, and guess what? It impacts the way that you are perceived and the way that others interact with you. So why does a communication brand matter? Number 1, it builds trust and credibility. And that's glue, isn't it? If you are a trustworthy person or you are perceived as someone they can trust, and you develop that credibility, once you open your mouth, people are willing to listen to your ideas. They will rally support for your ideas. They will expect you to lead. They expect you to talk. They expect you to advocate for them. And as a result, this snowballs into greater opportunities for you, greater collaborations, maybe networking with influential partners in your industry. And really, you find your career opening up once you have really strong communication skills and you're willing to raise your visibility by using your voice. All right, so let's get to how. How do you develop a strong communication brand? How do you build a strong communication brand? Step 1, identify your communication brand. I want you to do a self-assessment, meaning you're going to look at your communication strengths and your communication weaknesses, or spaces where you see an opportunity for growth. Let's put it in a more positive sense. So I had an assignment which I gave to a client, and I'd love for you to do the same thing. So I want you to reflect on how you communicate in a variety of spaces. So in interpersonal communication, when you're communicating with your family, with your friends, I want you to observe how you communicate or pay a little more attention. In social gatherings, what kind of communicator are you? When you're online, when you're at work, when you're in other situations, how do you communicate? And I want you to think about 3 words that you would use to describe your communication. Now, the second idea or task is to get feedback from others. Yeah, I said it. You need to ask your colleagues, your friends, your family, how you come across to them. Believe me, I did it. And I remember a few years ago that my mother said I wasn't a good listener. And I was, ouch, ouch. And I started to become more aware of whether I'm listening to her and allowing her to complete her ideas, and also being an active listener, meaning that I'm actively paying attention to the speaker's words and to their emotion as well. Actually made it a New Year's resolution one year that I was going to be more intentional. It's still a work in progress, of course, but do ask people who are willing to tell you the truth and be open. Sometimes they'll say you talk too fast. Sometimes they say you don't really listen. You are distracted. They will tell you the truth. There's a variety of responses that you may get. And I think that you could probe a little deeper as well. In the conversations with your colleagues and your friends or your employers, and you're asking about your communication brand, ask them if you are present. Are you an attentive person in communication, or are you distracted? You could also ask them if you come across authentic, or you come across more fake or more of a performer. And this is very important as well, because you do want to come across as yourself in as natural a way as possible. That tends to be a more effective style of communication. And an interesting thing I had my clients do is to ask whether they are empathetic in their communication or detached. And it doesn't mean you're not an empathetic person. I am talking about the way it comes across when you communicate, because sometimes we are busy, we become so distracted, and we have all these gadgets in our hands. And sometimes when people are talking to us, we are a little bit disengaged. So find out how you communicate and probe a little deeper and see what you come up with. And the next task I have for you in your self-assessment is think of the role models that you see that you admire their communication. For example, I admire Oprah's ability to listen, really pay attention to the person, making them feel seen, making them feel heard. I really respect that. I also respect and love Michelle Obama. I could listen to her all day. There's a strength and a character about the way that she communicates. And I really love great speakers. So who are your role models in terms of your communication? Step number 2 is to develop your communication brand. You have to really define what your essence is. And for me, the best way of doing this is to figure out what your personal brand is first. Meaning, what is your personality like? What are your core values? Because that is fundamental to your authentic self. And then you can build an ethos. And once you have an ethos of the self, I come across as a dignified person because I believe in character, I have integrity, I'm a very honest person, I'm trustworthy. Once you understand the self, that tends to come across in your communication essence, in the way that you come across and how you land on the audience. So that's number 1. Now, number 2 is really to practice your delivery. Whatever delivery style which you believe is your ideal style, then the next task is for you to develop that. That is going to take a lot of practice. I mean, personally, I was trained as a communicator. As a broadcaster, I had my voice trained. I went through tons of voice and speech class in order to sound the way I sound today and to speak in the manner in which I speak, and for my voice to come across in the authoritative way that I hope it comes across. It is a question of pacing, of not too fast, not too slow. You may want to work on your vocal quality. What is the nature of the sound that comes out of your mouth? You may also want to work on your posture, your gestures, your eye contact, your body language. And all of those things together, you can develop those practices to ensure that you develop a really strong communication brand. Now, the next thing is really to look at tailoring your message to your audience. I can't stress this enough. You have to know who you're talking to. I've made this mistake in the past where I'm in front of a group of people and I don't really know who they are, or not that I cared at that time. I didn't know the value of it. So I'm just spewing out my ideas and not concerned about whether it's landing on them in the way that is most effective. So you want to know your audiences, meaning what are their values? What are their interests? What are their hobbies? Are you and them on the same page? What language would they respond to? And once you know your audience, then you're able to tailor your message in a way that it can be well received by your audience. For example, if I'm going to a high school to talk to teenage boys on a soccer team, it's a different style. It's a different language that I would use than if I'm talking to my colleagues in the Department of Communication at the university. There's two different conversations, two different audiences, two different mindsets, a different value system altogether. They're two generations probably in terms of age. And so I would have to tailor my message to respond to the specific audience that I'm talking to. All right? So let's move on to step number 3, which is really about leveraging your communication brand so that you can make the kind of professional impact in your career that you want. The third step is leverage. It's my favorite word, leverage, because you can develop really strong skills, but if you're not leveraging it, you're not going to get the career success that you're after or the growth opportunities that you seek. You have to leverage your communication skills. Now, how are you going to do that? Number 1, you have to network. You have to get out there and make connections. You have to build relationships because people have to hear you speak. They have to know that you can write. They have to know that you can deliver ideas effectively, that you even have ideas in order to grant you some of the opportunities that you seek. I always say to my clients that, every turn, every step that we take in our career, there are gatekeepers around. They are people who we have to go through them in order to get access to whatever growth opportunity that we're looking for. And we have to be in their eyesight in order to be seen. If you're not in the room, then you're not going to get that opportunity. Number 2, public speaking. You have to test out your skills. If you're building a communication brand, you have to put it on the road. Raise your hand in meetings. Raise your voice. Offer to deliver the presentation. Offer to give the vote of thanks. Raise your voice and raise your visibility. Find spaces where you can open up your communication toolbox and use it, practice. And these are great opportunities. I mean, there are so many spaces these days where you can practice and build your communication chops. And one of the effective places these days, which is easy to access, is the online space. Use your social media. Turn the camera to yourself and do a video. Engage with people on social media. Create content. It doesn't have to be speaking. It could also be writing. It could be writing a blog. So create content, engage, raise your voice and raise your visibility. Because again, a strong communication brand is only as good as its last performance. So we need to see your brand in action. And last thing I'll say today is remember that developing a strong communication brand is currency. It's a powerful asset. So you want to invest the time and the effort to develop your communication skills, to nurture it, to cultivate it. Because once you do that, you will see your professional impact soar. Your career is going to expand in ways that you never even imagined just by virtue of having a strong communication brand. If you like this video, please share, comment, subscribe for more career tips, for tips on leadership, and for tips on communication. I'm Hume Johnson. Thank you for watching.